Okay, folks, so it's 10 o'clock here in Australia and we've got a new session up and ready. So we have Leisha Morrison having an Ask Me Anything session where you can ask your questions in the chat window or in the Q&A window, which makes it a little easier for us to track. And we can ask Leisha anything about data recruitment, her advice on careers and how to progress, anything that actually goes through. Leisha spent 7 years in business development and financial services before making the move to Australia in 2013. After joining Precision with no recruitment experience, she quickly found her niche and chose to join the analytics team, which has seen massive growth in the whole market. As a recruiter, Leisha's success has come from her ability to get to know her candidates inside and out, so she fully understands what makes them tick from a career perspective. And I can totally attest to that. Leisha's actually placed me in my most recent role. We've got some questions that Em and I have put together in case you're a little quiet on the Q&A, but this is your chance. Want to get to know how to get further in your career or unsure about the interview process? Ask your questions in the Q&A window and we'll ask Leisha live. So we'll kick off now and get started. Leisha, if you can make sure that you unmute your line and start your video. There we go. Em, are you there as well?
I'm here. Yes. Oh, let me unmute Leisha, and there we go.
Amazing. You all hear? Yeah, you can hear me. I don't know if you've seen my LinkedIn status this morning, but technology has not been my friend today, so I'm glad that we're all working.
Technology's never my friend when I've got to present or do something. I'm actually having difficulties with my Wi-Fi connection in the background and have been trying to change things and it hasn't been working for me.
Yeah, my Samsung phone, that really old phone I have, has decided that it's probably 2 hours in the future. So I woke up at 3:45 this morning instead of 5:45 and arrived at work and wondered why no one was here. I got to work. I got to work 2 hours in the future and was like, why is no one here? What's going on? Yeah. Anyway.
That's really awesome. So are you ready to ask answer some questions? We've actually even got something live that's come through already. So
amazing.
We'll get you to answer that one up first.
Yeah, okay.
So Brittany Fong asks, what tool or social media do you use most for recruiting? And do you ask or look for samples of work?
That's a good question. So what tool in social media do I mostly use? I'd say that it's a combination of Twitter and LinkedIn, probably with a little slant on LinkedIn, because I have a bigger audience and a bigger network there. I also don't really have a personal presence on LinkedIn, or let me rephrase that. I didn't really have a personal presence on LinkedIn before Precision, my company, took such a different stance towards personal branding. So I've been building that up from scratch, and I've got a little bit that I'm sure you'll probably have some questions on personal branding. I've got a little bit I can tell you about that and my journey so far, but mostly LinkedIn. And then I use Facebook from a very sort of specific point of view. When I'm connecting with people overseas, sometimes it's the easiest place for people to be able to talk to me. Messenger's so easy, isn't it? So I'd say that's a third comes in.
And what about Twitter? I know that you're on Twitter.
I am on Twitter, yeah. Twitter I find is more of it's a personal branding thing, but people don't generally contact me on Twitter, so I wouldn't say I use it as it's a tool, but it's not so much a connection tool. It's more of a personal branding tool that I use to show the world. You know, I mostly use it to rant or to talk about different things that I'm really passionate about.
And what's one of those things?
You should get involved. One of those things would be women in data. Probably quite a few people know that now. Fee and I run a networking group called Women in Data. I'm really passionate about getting more girls into STEM subjects. You're wearing your Data Plus t-shirt, Plus Women t-shirt. Yeah, really passionate about getting more girls into the data area and into STEM subjects. But I believe that the reason, or the way we're going to do that, is by making noise. The people that are in this industry already make noise first to show future generations what change will look like.
Fantastic.
You know, we also have another question. We've actually got a few questions that have come in so far, which is awesome.
Okay.
Devi asked, he says, I'm studying a master's of business analytics and actively looking for internship in analytics. Could you give some recommendation? Could you give Devi some recommendations?
Recommendations for internships, do we think, or about how to?
I think so. Although Devi, you might want to just clarify that a bit.
Yeah. I'll start talking just about internships in general, because it's actually been, funnily enough, talking about LinkedIn. I put a post out last week that's kind of kicked off a bit on this subject. It was mostly around just a bit of insight in people having local experience in Australia, that seems to be a massive sticking block for a lot of people. If you haven't got local experience, employers tend to be a little less inclined to take you on, perhaps. But from an internship perspective, I think they're a great idea, but I also think that it's easy for people to get lost in terms of to sell themselves too short. And you know, if you have a master's in, was it analytics, or what was the master's in?
Business analytics.
Business analytics. So if you have a master's in business analytics, you already probably got quite a lot of knowledge in that area. And you know, I think it's great that you want to go and further your commercial expertise and get I guess more advice from people that have years of industry knowledge, but also not to sell yourself short. So internships are great for a short-term period. I think 3 months is, in my opinion, probably enough. And then from there, I personally believe that you're better off trying to get into employment and get paid work. I think, obviously you can tell by my accent as well, I'm a Brit, so I'm coming at this from the standpoint of someone that's worked in Australia and Britain. I don't really have any knowledge about you know, America in general. Let me rephrase that. I don't really have any knowledge about the workplace in America in general. So I know that internships are a lot more sought after and a bigger thing over there than they are here.
Okay,
right?
And so Debbie just said it was really to get some good exposure in the field. So I guess it's really just the practical application of what is being learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are other ways that you can do that as well. And it's not easy, it's hard work, but there are other ways that you can do that by growing your network and going out to, well, taking part in things like this as well is going to be helpful. But maybe offer your services to, maybe for free, to people in the industry that you know, or reach out to your network and say, what can I help you with? What projects can I help with that I can put on my CV and add value to? And then therefore, you know, sort of in a contractual way, you're adding value straight away to your CV by working on different commercial projects that will give you exposure.
That's great. Thanks for that advice, Leisha. So we've got another question from Saravanan Ravi, who's asking, I'm a newbie to Tableau and I totally love the tool. I'd like to know how someone like me, who is Tableau self-trained and certified, can get work in Tableau projects. So it's similar to the last question.
Yeah, similar, but probably just more specific, which is good, I think. First of all, it's great that you love the tool. I'm a completely non-technical person, obviously, being a recruiter in the area. But from what I understand, Tableau is quite an easy tool to use, being drag and drop, and it's the favoured tool for visualization in a lot of places in Australia at the moment. So I'm guessing that you're based in Australia as well, by the way. Is that? No, maybe not.
Not necessarily.
No, we don't know.
Got people from all around the world.
You're right. So I'd say that the first thing I would say is that you've got a network of people right here listening to you right now that are also using the tool and probably working on Tableau projects already. There's people you can ask straight away.
Yes,
and then the second...
Sorry to interrupt. He's just come back and
right.
he's in Sydney.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, so there's a whole host of people in Sydney already that you can get involved in. I believe you guys as well have a makeover Monday, right?
We have that globally, and I do it locally in my own company as well.
So could that be something that he could get involved in to help him upskill himself in Tableau and get involved in Tableau projects?
Definitely. Get recognised globally as well. The other thing is to get involved with the Sydney Tableau user group. So there's a LinkedIn group with all of the details. Our next Tableau user group is on the 6th of September, and it's being hosted at Westpac. So you need to actually register to be able to get into the building, because it's all behind secured doors and everything.
Yeah, right. You should have asked me that question, Sarah Vanna.
All right, and then we have another question for remote positions. And if so, how is your process different or the same as recruiting for an in-office position?
Good question. I don't recruit for remote positions generally. I would leave that open and say that I'm open to the idea of recruiting remotely, but a lot of my clients aren't. So I'm probably not the right person to answer that question. I would say the process would be very similar, just more detailed, because obviously from a recruiter's point of view, we want to understand your motivation and your drive and what makes you want to work in that particular place at that particular time. And if you want to work remotely, what are the reasons for that? My understanding is that remote work in Australia is quite, there's quite a strong, a lot of places outsource and have remote workers, but they don't use recruiters generally to get those people.
So we have another question here. It's actually come through, not on the Q&A because it's from one of our panelists. Catherine would like to know whether or not there's specific keywords that can help stand out in a resume or cover letter that aren't totally overused.
Really good question, and I'm smiling because keywords are like they're kind of like the basic recruiter's best friend. There are a lot of recruiters out there who will use keywords as their best friend, if you like, and they'll scan through, especially being non-technical, they'll scan through a resume and just look for keywords. I would suggest that the best recruiters out there don't really care about keywords. And yes, of course we want to see what expertise you've got and what you've done and what achievements you've had on your CV. And we want to be able to see what tools you can use and that you can build statistical models or whatever it might be. But I wouldn't say that this is something you should spend massive amount of time investing in. The only way that I would say that would be really relevant is when you are applying for jobs directly, because a lot of recruitment tools are now automated. And if you apply for, let's say, a job directly with a big bank, likely what's going to happen to your CV is it will go into a big cog, and a machine will look for keywords, and it will fire your CV to what it thinks is the right area. Not always. There are also human recruiters at the other end who can sift through, but you can imagine they'll be super busy and don't necessarily have time to look through thousands of CVs per week. So that's when it's the most important time to put keywords into your CV. And the last part of that question was, which keywords would you use, I think? Was that right?
Yeah.
Which would stand out. And I would say that specific tools and program languages are the most important things that you can put in there, because those are what the automated recruitment tools will look for as well. So things like, SQL, R, Python, Tableau, and there's nothing. Those ones I just mentioned there actually are probably the most prevalent, certainly in Australia at the moment, and from what I understand, America and the UK as well.
Thank you.
We also had another question that's in our Q&A, that's in our chat because it comes from a panelist. Are there good mid-length contracts available down under? Because Scott would love to visit and work there.
Yeah, right. There are, definitely. I'd probably caveat by questioning what's mid-level to you. I always say never assume, but for the purposes of time, let me assume you mean maybe like 3 to 6, maybe 12 months. And yes, there definitely are. Contract work here is not the norm, shall we say. I'd say permanent work is definitely more prevalent than contract, especially through us using recruitment firms. They tend to be more permanent jobs available, but because they outsource so much in Australia as well, there's always contract work available. There's a lot of project-based work as well, which lends itself to contracts too. Does that answer your question? Yeah, great.
Okay, oh, here we have another question. Let's see, this person, Reddy, has 5 years of experience in Tableau desktop and server. Also scored 96% on the Tableau desktop certification and is looking forward to starting his own business development work as well as support workers. Can I get any recommendations and contacts from you? I have a few people in my hand for, and then it cuts off, so I'm not sure. So I think he's looking to start his own business development work and support. So I'll let you take a stab at answering that. And Reddy, if you want to provide any clarifying comments, feel free.
Yeah, right. Well, network-wise and contact-wise, I've got about 5,000 LinkedIn contacts, so get cracking on there. I'd say without understanding more about your skill set, seeing a CV and understanding your motivations as well, I wouldn't necessarily feel massively confident just giving you out loads of contacts off the top of my head. But it probably wouldn't be the most professional thing for me to do right here, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with you outside of here, offline. I hate that word. But yeah, there's definitely a network you can tap into in terms of clients that I work with and people I know in the industry as well. A little bit of a stab at that question.
So
Thank you.
We have another question here from Saravanan, who's asked and says, thank you for asking his first question. He's asked what other tools clients are looking for alongside Tableau, for instance, ETL tools, or, you know, have you seen anything that's been paired up together?
Yeah, definitely. In Australia, in data analytics specifically, and let me just note, I think it's important to note as well that the way we recruit at Precision is we separate BI and analytics completely. So we're very siloed in what we recruit in. So your ETL tools would very much sit in the BI space for us, and that would be my colleague Joel Steen, who would look after that kind of recruitment. But obviously we do get, and then when we get a crossover, we work together as well. The other tools that are really prevalent in the Australian market are definitely are SQL. Sometimes like SAS is a partner too, rather than a prerequisite now, I find. Tableau does seem to be the visualization tool of choice, I think probably because it's the most widely known at the moment. And Python, I've noticed in the last 18 months to 2 years, I've noticed Python being a lot more widely used. Not sure why that is, to be honest. You guys might be able to give me more insight on that, but it's more widely recognized than asked for.
Fantastic, thank you.
No worries.
All right, we have another question here from Brittany, who says, I've heard from many employers that they have found lots of talent, but have trouble finding quality talent. Do you have any suggestions for them?
Yeah, definitely. Use me. No, I'm joking. I would say that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff you can be doing. First of all, it's great that people are recognizing that A, recognizing good talent, and B, recognizing that it's hard to find and that there's a value in that. Then I would say that, as in anything, when you're looking to attract someone to you, the first thing you need to do is look at yourself. What have you got to offer as a company, as a team, as a hiring manager, as a team leader, even just as a colleague? What have you got to offer for the best talent to come and join you? Yeah, salary is, you know, obviously a massive motivator for a lot of people, but it's not the only motivator. And generally in this market, I find that people are more interested in working on projects that they're passionate about rather than the salary. I've even had candidates who've been happy to take pay cuts to go and work at certain places or with certain people. You guys generally tend to be more, you would lean towards the people that you work with and the projects that you work on as well. So firstly, look internally at yourself. Secondly, personal branding from a company point of view as well as an individual point of view is so important. Again, that's how you get your information out there about what you're doing to try and attract the best talent to you. And I would say that there's a lot more to this topic, and it's a good one to cover. You could do your own conference just purely on that. But I would say the next most important thing for me would be the interview process. It's something that puts a lot of candidates off because a lot of places now have the most ridiculously lengthy interview processes. But equally, you don't want your interview process to be too short. I had a candidate not long ago that came to me and was like, oh, you know, weren't looking, and then they went for a coffee with someone and they got offered. They went for a coffee on, say, the Tuesday and got offered on the Wednesday, and on the Thursday they were freaking out and saying, I don't even know what this company, you know, what the company goals are, what the career trajectory could be like for me. I don't know, you know, whether I want to take this role or not because I don't feel like I've had enough touch points within the organisation. Similarly, if your interview process is really lengthy, I think Facebook, for example, I think they have about seven or eight stages. That's a surefire way to lose the best candidates and the best talent because they're going to be snapped up by someone else.
On that interview point, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question. What are some of the most important things for candidates to do when preparing for an interview?
Yeah, so really basic stuff, which you guys will, I'm sure, already know, is obviously to research the company and the person that you are interviewing with. But you'd be surprised how many people need reminding of that. And when I say research the company as well, I don't necessarily mean just go on LinkedIn or just go on the website and have a look what the company do. Reach out to a network. It's so important. If you're using a recruiter, ask your recruiter. They should know about the company. They should know about the team sizes, the motivations. We're trained to ask those kind of questions. If we don't know, we will know where to go to get those answers. And if your recruiter doesn't know the answers to those things, you need to ask them to make sure and go and find out that they give you those answers. You can also reach out to the network that you know. You might have friends that work in the organisation, or friends of friends, or colleagues of friends. Obviously, I know that's a tricky subject when you're not necessarily telling people that you're looking around for work, but I definitely think that you need to get creative and think outside the box when it comes to doing your research on a company. Read articles, go read news articles, find out the good stuff as well as the bad stuff, and be prepared with questions about that when you go to interview. Really important that you call out if they've had any bad press for any reason. Call that out in the interview in a nice way and ask how they're turning that around or what perception they would like to turn around. And I find that hiring managers enjoy that kind of challenging thinking and someone standing up to them and showing that they've put a lot of effort into researching the company.
So we've got a question from Caesar, who's one of our TFF alumni. He presented last year, and thanks, Caesar, for asking the question. You want to know, do you see companies asking for samples of data viz work in the recruitment process?
I actually haven't. No, not yet. And the reason I stumbled over that question is because the honest answer is no, but the longer answer is I have had companies who've included that as part of their interview process and stages, but it's not been absolutely articulated to me, the recruiter. But I've had candidates that have come out and said, oh yeah, we've been talking about the visualization work that I've done, and they asked me about the dashboards that I've built. But I've not necessarily been privy to that before the interview, so it's a learning curve for all of us. I did actually have one candidate, though, a standout candidate. He's an amazing guy, very young, so he had just had just finished a master's. This was about 2 years ago, and was going in for his first job. And he took a visualization dashboard that he had built just off his own back into his first interview with a very well-known startup. And they offered him on the spot because of that visualization. So it's a powerful tool to take with you.
Mm. So I can answer a little bit of this as well, having sort of been on the other side of the fence. I think there's 18 people or 19 people in our team. And recently we have been hiring, and the first time around, we gave them a data set to do it on the fly within half an hour. The second time, we actually gave them a Makeover Monday to do over the weekend, as well as an Ultrix exam as well. So just to show that they're committed to it, we can see what they're doing. We can see, how they're using color, have they got good visualization style? Are they choosing the right kind of vizzes along the way? And, to be honest, we can see where there's the gaps in that and whether or not we think that we can coach them through it. It makes it really, really easy.
I think it's a great part of the process that most other hiring managers should adopt as well, because data visualization is becoming such a big thing now. And just because you're a great analyst doesn't necessarily mean that you've got all the data viz skills that you will need to do that job. Equally, you might be a gun at visualization and need some help with the, with the analytics side of things or the strategy side of things. So it's a good way for hiring managers to understand how you can best manage that person and what help you'll need to give them once they're in the job.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, we've got a couple of comments here saying, Kim mentioned that we require a portfolio of visualizations at her company. So I think that, and I was actually just talking with Carl Alchin the other day, who has said that he talks about the Tableau Public in this particular case, because they were hiring, I think, for a Tableau specialist, what their Tableau Public profile looked like. So it seems to be that is trending more towards talking about the Tableau Public or the data visualization portfolio that you do have. So we actually have another question too from Catherine saying, what are some red flags that signal a company isn't sure what they are looking for or aren't for the right type of role?
Yeah. That's a really good question, actually, Catherine. Thanks for asking it. Just a little insight into my day-to-day life there. Look, when I go to a meeting, and this was more prevalent when I was newer at my job, actually. Now I have a lot of repeat business from a lot of repeat clients, so I know the company and the clients really well, and I can kind of weed through, for want of a better word, I can read through the BS a lot more sometimes, most of the time. But when I go to a meeting with a client who says to me, in fact, this happened just recently, they don't have a data capacity at the moment or capability for data. We need a data scientist to join our company. I'm going, okay, hang on a second. What data capability have you got already in place? And then let's figure out, where you're going to go with that, what the long-term plan is, what the short-term plan is. What does a data scientist mean to you? And he was like, well, someone that can use SQL. Right, okay, I think we need to have a chat about what data science means and what SQL is and maybe what the requirements are and the business objectives. So that's a massive red flag when companies come to you and say, I need this, but don't really give you any insight straight off around what this actually is and what it means and what the business objective is. And we see that a lot. I think another red flag would be when they are too open with the requirements that they're happy to get. So they just say, he's nodding, yeah. When they just say things like, well, look, I don't mind what tools that this person works on. We're completely tool agnostic. I don't mind what background they come from. Doesn't matter if they've ever worked in, in say, retail or the industry before, whatever that might be, and yeah, I don't mind what their educational background is. I just want someone who can really sit down and be great with statistics and work the numbers out for us. That's a massive red flag, because it's just, yourself, that this is a big industry, and although it's niche, there's a wide aspect to what the niche is. There's so many others that I could mention, but I think those for me are the two that stand out on a day-to-day basis. Good question there.
Well, goodness, this has gone so well. I love all of the questions.